Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversations. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, let's talk about the latest in the case of Jordan Neely, how Mayor Eric Adams has officially made a statement around the situation. And we're going to share with you what the mayor had to say and how their city is planning to move forward from that tragedy. Also, let's talk about providing mental health in schools, how one organization is doing its part to make sure that young people have access to mental health services and support. And what does that mean for schools, especially coming for this upcoming school year? We'll have that discussion. And later, I want to talk about what California Governor Gavin Newsom has just decided, where he has rejected cash payments for California residents that are eligible for reparations. He says he's going to focus more on systemic change, but that the legacy of slavery is more and is bigger than cash. What's your take, folks? We're going to have that discussion and a whole lot more. So stay with us. It's all coming up on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Let's just jump right into it. And folks, if you're watching us, you know we're streaming on a few different platforms. We're streaming on YouTube right now, where you can jump in the chat and be a part of the culture crew and share your thoughts as we have these conversations. We're also streaming, of course, on Black Star Network and, of course, on Amazon News. So definitely let your friends and family know that the culture on the Black Star Network is on. Okay, folks, let's start off with this first discussion, talking about the latest in the case in the death of Jordan Neely in New York City. This is the black man that was choked to death while on a subway train in New York just last week. And 10 days after his death, Mayor Adams, who's had a couple of moments where he discussed what he saw happening, and he often just said that we will have to wait and see and let the investigation play out. He made a more fuller statement yesterday about the death of this black man. So I want to share with you what Mayor Adams had to say, and then we'll get some of your take from there and check in with our brother Sinead Wakofor as well. So take a look at what Mayor Adams had to say. All right, we're going to make sure we're going to get to the audio. Let me bring my brother Sinead Wakofor, who is a diversity, equity, inclusion specialist. He's an activist and an advocate, and get his take on what we're seeing with this case with Jordan Neely. My brother Sinead, good to see you this afternoon. How you feeling, bro?
Good to see you as well. I'm feeling good.
Good. What do you? I know we have been talking extensively here on the show over these past few days about what happened with Jordan Neely. But I want to focus on how the city has been responding. One of the big things that Mayor Adams wanted to bring a focus to, or shine some light on, is the fact that the city is trying to ramp up its mental health support services, right? Making sure that those who are suffering from mental health conditions get the needed care, they get the access to the support, and then also letting other citizens know, other folks know, hey, look, do not approach this in a violent way. But it seems like this message, this effort to get mental health support is coming at a very late time because of the killing of Jordan Neely.
Yeah, I think in this case, first of all, I would like to first say that we have to make sure that we're not using mental health as a scapegoat to why he died, right? That is a whole separate issue of a power. We see it with gun violence as well, where we live in a nation that's very, very violent driven. And to be very clear, people with mental health issues like Mr. Neely had are usually 4 times likely to be the victims of crimes rather than be the perpetrators of them as it pertains to shootings and stuff of that nature.
Wow.
It's rather unfortunate what happened, and we can get to the mental health issue in my opinion secondly. But what that guy did and how just he killed him, it just reminds me of the blatant regards that we see when black men are shot. It's that same imagery of like you're not a person, like you're a target, like you're just a number, like, and it's just rather disheartening on that section. And I'm sure there's some mental health on both parts, because for you to be a trained Marine and you killed this man, you're not in combat. Like, what's going on? You know, and it's so many things. They are also the desensitization of the folks who stood by and watched, which again, I like to remind people that standing around and watch, people stood around and watched Jesus die as well. That seems to be something of human nature. But that is strange to me, that folks did not try and intervene to save this man. Was he less than a man because he had mental health issues? It's just so many different schisms of our society that just show that we have some really deep-rooted issues that we need to be addressing in this country.
So yeah, and then on the other day on the show, Sinead, I had a very big conversation, showed my passion around the fact that no one intervened as this encounter happened for 15 minutes. And so that should have been the first thing. After 2 or 3 minutes, it should have been some intervention, of some sort, to at least give this brother a chance to live. But we're seeing that there are still some lag in how the police department has been moving on this situation. Like I said, Mayor Eric Adams, he had some words about it when it first happened, but his words were very tepid. Hey, we're going to see how this situation. We got to look at all the facts. We got to look at everything. But now it seems like something is changing. And, we're working on getting that statement for folks so y'all can hear directly from the mayor what he had to say. But it's so much lag, Sinead. And when we're talking about, here's the thing. When we talk about trying to take this country to a better place, it seems like we do have to have a second or third conversation to say, let's start taking these systems and these institutions to catch up with the demands of the citizens. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's the frustrating part about it. You and I both work in activism and advocacy. And as much as we talk about changing the mindset and the thinking and the culture of people, the real big change is the systems.
Yes.
The real big change are the system. How do as a DEI specialist, how do you make, kind of speed that process up, that is not just about the people and their attitudes, but it's also about the systems and the institutions and their policies on how they have done things?
Yeah, I mean, people have to remember, what comes first, the chicken or the egg. People's attitude and the way they act are usually directly tied to systems. Directly tied. You can see that in the idea of when you look at the history of redlining, for instance, and stuff of that nature. There was a deterioration of how people acted once they were put in situations and set up in areas where they could not develop. This is also, psychology, survival of the fittest. Like it's unfortunate that everybody wants to keep addressing people and like people need to be better. No, it is the law. The law has to also match what the people are doing. It has to be in tandem. And that just has not been the case. It's been rather unfortunate. And it's starting to make our society strange, where, you're hearing stories of a young girl got shot in the head for playing hide and go seek in someone's lawn. Where is all this aggression? Where is all this anger? And I always say this, every other country supposedly watches us. If we're the most developed nation on this experiment that we called Earth, then what will the third world, as they call them, nations, what will they have to look forward to if we are still moving as if we are in some type of cataclysmic, terror-ridden fiasco all the time? And I think it's important that when we put money to the side, and when, some of these ills of capitalism show themselves, and we really focus on the needs of the people, because these needs of mental health, they've been here for a long time. They're now reaching their boiling point. But when it was a rising action, everybody just like COVID, just like climate change, everybody just they pay it to the side until it's really, really in our face. And I think we're going to have more issues like this, some even worse, until society meets up with legislation.
Absolutely. Look, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we're going to play what New York City Mayor Eric Adams had to say about the death of Jordan Neely. It's a change in tone, but will it change the outcome of this situation? Folks, stay with us. The conversation continues up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Farajii Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We have been talking about the latest in the case and death of Jordan Neely of New York City, the young black man that was killed by a chokehold by a 24-year-old Marine vet. And the case 10 days later, Jordan Neely died last week. 10 days later, folks, we are looking at a situation where there have not been any arrests made. Video has certainly been shown. A city has been in uproar about a number of issues, from how the police has handled this investigation, this case, to its response to mental health and services. And so New York City is feeling it right now. Well, I want to play for you the video that Mayor Eric Adams, his statement around this case and how the city plans to move forward. Take a look.
My fellow New Yorkers, this has been a week of strong emotions in our city. One of our own is dead. A black man, black like me. A man named Jordan, the name I gave my son. A New Yorker who struggled with tragedy, trauma, and mental illness. A man whose last words were a cry for help. A man named Jordan Neely. The circumstances surrounding his death are still being investigated. And while we have no control over that process, one thing we can control is how our city responds to this tragedy. One thing we can say for sure, Jordan Neely did not deserve to die. I want to state up front that there were many people who tried to help Jordan get the support he needed. But the tragic reality of severe mental illness is that some who suffer from it are at times unaware of their own need for care. Tens of thousands of Americans and their families are forced to fend for themselves because we have not devoted the resources needed to provide appropriate mental health care. It is time to build a new consensus around what can and must be done for those living with serious mental illness. It starts with addressing the issues of mental health across the board, taking action to treat people before they are in crisis. And it means that we must give people in crisis the care they need for as long as they need it. Jordan Neely's life mattered. He was suffering from severe mental illness, but that was not the cause of his death. His death is a tragedy that never should have happened. My heart goes out to Jordan's family, who's suffering great pain and uncertainty about the circumstances of his death. No family should have to suffer a loss like this.
Let's bring my brother Shanadu back into the frame. Shanadu. It sounded like, bro, that the mayor was trying to make the point. One of the points he made is that Jordan was given the opportunity to get some help, but he refused it because he didn't think anything was wrong. I might be wrong in my understanding and interpretation of what the mayor just said, but that seems like that was part of the situation. But even more so than that, does it sound like he is going to be a mayor that's going to really make sure that justice will be served in this case?
I would hope so. He is a cop.
Former cop, yeah.
Former cop, excuse me. And police is akin to military. So I don't know if there's some type of internal brotherhood, but he made a point to say that Justin was given many opportunities, but it didn't. Let me tell you what that reminds me of. Do you remember the people during COVID who did not wear masks? But then when they got sick, and they got to the hospital, they wanted to get, saved or whatever, but it was far too late. It reminds me of that scenario, or the statement that prevention is better than cure. You can't say that you offered him services and he didn't. What was the condition of Jordan's life? Let's go to the origin. Let's go to the beginning. What's the conditions of his life, how he lived, his family background? Because that's important too. If Jordan has had mental health issues since he was a kid, but services are first being offered at age 17, it's very late. Hence the example I just gave before. It's very late time. It's a very late window because he's almost an adult now. I think, again, yes, you can have all of the services that you want and offer, and that's good and great. But why was he failed in the first place?
Yeah.
What happened? What did our government or society not do for him? And I think that's something that the mayor has to grapple with, because there are many people who are mentally unwell. Are we caring for them and giving them all the services that are needed before they can become a problem? Because in my opinion, if prevention is better than cure, if the proper services were given early enough, a lot of this could have been prevented in the first place. And
let's look at the historic relationship between Black people and mental health services and healthcare in general, right? If a person like a Jordan Neely came into a doctor's office, what was he diagnosed with? Now, the crazy part about this is that, and I was just looking at some numbers, some statistics around this, that Black people, we are diagnosed more with major mental health illnesses such as schizophrenia and bipolar disorder more than any other group of people in this country. And so if we get actually overdiagnosed with that, but in a case like this, it may have led to, this may have been part of Jordan's, issue. But then again, if you got all these people, some people saying he got arrested all these many times, and you mean to tell me that nobody took in consideration he's not well? The brother is not well. And so as a result of that, we're in this space. We're at this point. But what I did not hear from the mayor is that I did not hear a man who was going to say, you know what, we're going to get justice for Jordan. Because regardless of his mental health, and here's the irony of this, Sinead and crew. The irony is that when a situation like this happens, we often talk about, oh man, Black men and Black women, we don't get the tag of having mental health, and nobody shows that level of humanity. Now, when we get a case that actually has the tag of somebody suffering from mental health, all of the attention is on the mental health, and not on the fact that this man was killed as a result of somebody choking him out. That's the part.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Now we focus on mental health. What about the fact that the man was killed? So now it's like this other flip side of the conversation. A man was killed. He did not deserve to die. I agree with the mayor on that. But he died because somebody who is supposed to be trained to see things and all of this stuff, he got such a hot head, he felt like he had to rectify the situation to kill this man. And then to act as if he didn't know he killed this man. And then for the police to be like, you know what? We questioned him a little bit and let him go. Shit, that man might be in Mexico for all we know. There was no update. I was expecting to get at least an update from the mayor and say, look, we are going to pursue this. We're going to make sure not only Jordan and there's going to be some justice. I didn't get that. Willie, my brother, you checked in. You said taking a page out of Obama's book, huh? Sounds like Trayvon Martin when President Obama said Trayvon Martin could have been my son. That's all well and good that his name is the same as your son, Mr. Mayor. But will there be justice for Jordan Neely? That's the big question. We got I know we got 30 seconds to go, Brother Sinead. From this vantage point, from this step, what's the next step? How does the community heal? How do we move forward? We get the mental health support and services, but how do we heal? How do we get some justice in this thing, bro?
That's a loaded question for 30 seconds. I'll say, man, it's a lot. It's two-pronged approach. We need better laws for sure. We all said that. But then Black people, we need to also have the conversations with ourselves about mental health and how we treat it and how we don't ignore it. It's not, oh, he's all right. Oh, he's just a little child. If your kid got issues or what have you, don't be embarrassed. That time of being embarrassed is gone. We have to make sure that we're saving lives and saving the lives of others as well.
Absolutely. Pauline, you checked in and said increase the budget for mental illness. Absolutely. Conscious Thought, you checked in and said New York City Mayor Eric Adams is reading this speech addressed with no sincerity or empathy. Political grandstanding at its worst. Janae, you say before 40 arrests. How many times is that a cry for help? So crew, y'all are saying y'all see it. Here's the bottom line. Either we say justice for Jordan, we get the individual of the Marine vet who's responsible for killing. We could talk about the mental health. We could do all of that stuff. But if you want to bring closure if you want to bring some level of healing to this family, to the family of Jordan Neely, arrest the Marine vet who caused him to die. It's just that simple. He didn't compress his neck on his own. Arrest the Marine vet who caused him to die. That's where you start the healing. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we will continue the conversation about mental health. This time, from the train to the schools, we're going to be checking in with Education Trust CEO and President to give us some insight on how we can have that conversation right there in the classroom. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shots.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We are continuing our conversation about mental health support and services, especially in light that May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And as we see at the very beginning of this month, the unfortunate irony is that we started the month in tragedy and talking about mental health with the death of Jordan Neely. And so all throughout this month here on the Black Star Network, particularly here on The Culture, we're going to do our part to try to highlight some of the various dynamics of this situation and its impact on our community, especially for the next generation. And so this is where this conversation fits into that, folks. We're going to talk about the fact that there are not as many school districts across this country that are really investing in making sure that students, and we talked about this earlier this week, young people are under tremendous strain because of outside forces from everything that's happening in the home. But we also can know that things that are happening outside the home, whether it's talking about racial justice, whether it's talking about poverty, whether it's talking about anxiety and depression and the things that that causes students to move to look to drugs, to look to alcohol, to look to type of destructive behaviors because they don't have the access to the resources, to the services, and most importantly, they're not getting the necessary care that they need. So this organization, Education Trust, is doing something to change that conversation. And so we're happy to have joining us the president and CEO of Education Trust, Ms. Denise Fort, to talk to us about providing mental health services in the schools. And of course, we still got my brother Sinedu joining us in the conversation. But Denise, welcome to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. How are you this afternoon?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here with you and get into this conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. And then we're going to, in a few moments, we'll bring my brother Sinedu back in. But first and foremost, Denise, I wanted to talk about the work of Education Trust. Give us a little bit more details about the role that you play, the work that Education Trust do, and then more importantly, the impact that you are looking to make.
Thank you. The Education Trust is a national advocacy organization. We work with communities across the country to make sure students of color and students from low-income communities can actually achieve academic and educational equity. We do this by providing research and data and working with these communities to actually tailor the appropriate policy solutions that they believe will bring us closer to educational equity.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, the other thing that Education Trust, based on what we've learned about the work that you do, you're an advocacy organization that is trying to advocate for mental health support in schools. And what does that mean? That means like psychologists, school psychologists, counselors, and social workers. Give us some more details about that effort.
Yeah, thank you. We absolutely need more school counselors, more school psychiatrists in the classroom. Our students want to be safe. Our students know, our teachers and our parents, they think that school safety and student mental health are some of the top concerns. But unfortunately, we're dealing with some of the remnants of the pandemic. Even though they're about to close out the pandemic emergency, we're still learning that many students are in crisis. Student suicide rates are up. We have 1 in 5 that seriously consider suicide, and 1 in 10 have attempted suicide. We have 4 out of 10 high schoolers saying they just don't feel safe. They don't feel that they are receiving the mental health supports that they need. So what we're calling for is something that's evidence-based, that really talks about how you can provide a supportive and positive school climate for these young students, and that we start early in doing that.
So how early are we talking about here, Denise?
Well, let me tell you, when some of the policies that states and school districts use right now are actually suspending Black preschoolers, we need to be starting really early. Can you believe that? Suspension rates for Black preschoolers are at 43%. 43%. And when you look at how Black boys are over-disciplined and Black girls are over-disciplined, you really learn that we need to do a better job and we need to do it early on.
43% increase of the suspension of Black preschoolers?
Yes, they represent.
I didn't even know, first thing, I didn't even know a preschooler can be suspended.
Yes, they can in many states. Not only that, we have 23 states that still allow for corporal punishment, which we know does nothing to help with students' mental health.
All right. So you're starting this process in advocating for this type of support, this type of service, this type of help from elementary school all the way through high school?
From preschool and all the way through college.
Wow.
And what we really need, yes, we need more school counselors. Yes, we need more school psychologists. We need more school nurses. But what every child really needs is a well-trained adult that they know that they can talk to and that they can rely upon, so that they really feel a sense of belonging and that they can feel included. So having adults and well-trained adults to do that is really important. Some schools are doing a good job at this, but the ratio for other positions is really high. The ratio for school counselors, for school psychologists, so they can't do it all by themselves.
I want to bring my brother Shanedu back into this discussion as we talk to you, Denise. Shanedu, 43%. I'm stuck on that. I mean, Denise just dropped a bomb on my mind. That blows me away that we are at that point that you gotta have. You know, I remember childhood used to be a time of innocence. It used to be a time of exploring. It used to be a time of fun. But we're looking at a situation in this country where it's actually increased in terms of suspension among preschoolers. Shanedu, help me to make this make sense, bro.
Well, first of all, I'm glad to be here with the Education Trust. Love them, by the way. Did some work with y'all a couple of years ago. I mean, look, y'all know I keep it real, I always have. Hearing these stats make me laugh because, you know, I am a part of that statistics. The first time I ever got suspended was in kindergarten. And looking at where I'm at now, it shows me as an adult that when it comes to Black children, that there is not adequate understanding of how to deal, understand, educate, deal with behavioral issues as it pertains to Black children. It's very easy to just suspend or say somebody is crazy or has ADHD, but that isn't just enough. That's almost just like a write-off. There is no actual good process that works very well with students that are African American. And it's a policy thing because it goes down the line. You know, the school suspending you. Who will they answer to? They answer to the superintendent. Who they answer to? Department of Education. So it's a very endemic system, and it's quite unfortunate. And I think it's very important as it pertains to Black and brown children that a lot of the policies that govern these schools, they need to have folks from those communities highly involved, because I remember when I was told, you know, I wouldn't make it to college. Been there twice, joke's on you. But just think about how many other kids that were told something similar and accepted it because maybe I was a little bit high strung and I was acting out because I actually wasn't challenged. You know, you learn that as an adult, but there's so many other cultural things that I think are missed in these moments.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Denise, I want to get your take before we take our next pause. But, you know, what does the advocacy look like? What does mental health support look like for a preschooler, you know, that has just experienced suspension for the first time or the second or third time?
That preschooler can still have a trained adult working with them. It really doesn't matter what age. We're learning that every child needs some one-on-one support to make them feel a sense of belonging, to help them feel included, to give them someone to talk to before conflicts arise so that we don't have to have the police called in or anything like that. That's where you are creating a positive school climate for every child in the school.
Absolutely. Folks, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, more conversation with our special guest, Denise Ford from the Education Trust. She serves as CEO and president. More discussion from Brother Shanedu. And, of course, I'm going to get your take, crew. So stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black
own media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. We've been talking to Ms. Denise Ford, who serves as the president and CEO of Education Trust, to talk to us about what they're doing to provide mental health services and support in the schools. Now, there is a huge gap of disparity when it comes to mental health support that affects Black children versus white children, other children. And so Denise and Education Trust is trying to do their part to advocate for school psychologists, counselors, guidance counselors, social workers, and additional support from caring adults who can help make the transition of discipline, who can help make the transition of policy better and easier for students. We're also joined by my brother Sinedu Wakorfor. And folks, I would love to get your take on this discussion. Join us right now. Post your comments on the chat as we're streaming right now on YouTube. Denise, I want to get back to the work that Education Trust is doing because you put together this report that speaks to this issue of where we are right now in supporting and providing mental health support to young people and to children in America. Talk to us a little bit about this report.
Well, this report offered a new lens into how states are actually doing when it comes to providing social, emotional, and academic development service for young people in schools these days. And we found that some states were doing pretty well, like Massachusetts and Delaware, and other states were not doing that well when it came to providing student and family engagement. So what we're calling for is for more states to take a look at their social, emotional, and academic development policies so that we can create a positive school climate for all students.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's fantastic. Love for Love, you checked in and said parents don't parent anymore. They just give children the new babysitter, the internet. Do you find that to be the case? And how much has internet usage played on children's mental health at this point, Denise?
Well, cyberbullying is a big deal, and we need to really watch out for that. And that's why, we know the things that work. The federal government has spent almost $200 billion to reopen schools and help schools recover from the COVID pandemic. We know what the most effective things are. We know when students feel safe, and students tell us when they feel safe. And things like cyberbullying, things like bringing more metal detectors into the classroom and more police into the classroom do not make students feel safe.
Right. And look, let me just tell you, Denise, I'm from Baltimore. I've seen police presence in the schools. You have school police, you have city police, especially during I remember during the uprising of 2015 with the killing of Freddie Gray. Like this was, when I did the CNN interview, they asked me, well, what do you think of military and police at schools? And I'm like, this is no different. This is what we see. This is what students see when they walk through those doors. They see police standing at the door. Yes, they could be officer friendly, but it's the fact that you have to have a police officer at a school door to welcome children in. It reeks of going into the system, the criminal justice system. And so, I mean, that already will play on your mind. Sinead, we both come from that place. Like, it will already play on your mind. If people think that you are dangerous, then you're going to start to believe that you're dangerous.
Absolutely. And you got me thinking about that day, that Freddie
Right,
Gray.
bro.
That was a crazy day. And to the point of the power of education, just to give you some insight, on that day, it was HBCU students who came to help aid the young students, because the bus got shut down that day, to aid them in getting back to their families so they didn't get caught up in the mayhem. Just to show how, Black students of different generations help one another. But to make a point about mental health, something that Dr. Joy DeGruy, she speaks about a lot, is that how we went from slavery to Jim Crow to mass incarceration and the war on drugs, or wherever we are currently now. And throughout that entire time, there has been almost zero mental health as a whole. And because of that, you have these new generations of kids who are carrying a lot of burdens that the people who are putting it on them, they're carrying burdens that people don't even know that they have. And I believe, I hear a lot of, sometimes I hear, parents say things along the lines of, my kid is not this, or that's not my child, and this and that and that. Whether we like it or not, there was a mental destabilization due to the history of what happened to Black and brown people. And I think the earlier that schools and parents are able to address those things, and we create plans to help these kids, because what I appreciate about this generation of children, they're letting you know that certain things, that they don't feel okay. They're not going to just, hunker it down and leave it there. No, they want to talk about it. They want to express. And I think that gives us as the adults an opportunity to help them in a way that we didn't get helped.
Denise, can you speak to that? Can you speak to the fact that, a lot of Black children in particular, we're carrying generations of trauma?
Absolutely.
And they may not know that. How does Education Trust address that?
Absolutely. And, one of the things, the very powerful things that you can do about that is to make sure that children are seen both in their classroom and by their teachers. And some really powerful work is going on right now in terms of curriculum, where students are reflected in that curriculum, students' experiences are reflected in that curriculum, and that's when students feel more connected and more engaged. The same thing goes for the educator workforce. We know that when students of color see a teacher of color in their classroom, they feel more engaged, they feel more connected. But guess what? It's not just for students of color, it's for all students. All students benefit from having a diverse educator workforce. So absolutely, that trauma that students experience, we need to be addressing it head on by making sure that they see positive role models in the curriculum that they're reading, in the work that they're doing, and positive role models in the classroom right there alongside them.
And how does your work spill over into the students' relationship with school police, resource officers, and police of that, of that city or that county? Because if schools, we already know, Denise and Sinead, have become, unfortunately, some of these schools have become killing grounds because of things like mass shootings that we see at school now more than ever. So how do we make sure that every stakeholder that is around students or in the school building understands the importance of mental health support, Denise?
That's why training is so very important. And the dollars that came from the federal government to help schools reopen and for mental health services can be used for training adults. And these adults could be police officers, they could be the maintenance workers. But we do know that making sure that every student, every student has the ability to have one-on-one services and support from someone who will listen to them, someone who will stand by them, and someone who will be available before the conflict arises, so we don't have to call in the police and potentially do even more harm to our young people.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me go back to the crew. Janae, you checked in and said, I need retired teachers to still attend these PTA meetings firstly, but I get it if they are over it. They bring firsthand knowledge to these old school problems. I do agree they are needed. How do you engage those retired teachers and get them back to the table and have these conversations, Denise?
We think that's an excellent idea. But you know what? Some schools aren't open to parents, much less other members of the community. And that's one policy that absolutely could be changed. That is one policy that is clearly within the school's purview to make sure that they have standing availability for school and family engagement, so that in itself helps students feel more connected when they see that their family is welcome into the school.
Absolutely, absolutely. As we close out this part of the conversation, Denise, I want to make sure that you give us all the details about where people can find your report and other information, and possibly to help in this process, because this is an effort that needs as much attention as possible, which is why we're even having this discussion. But we do need more mental health support in the schools. We need more I would say, more responsible and accountable Black people who provide these services to be present, because the last thing we need is this number of preschoolers to go up even higher. So how can people get more information and details about Education Trust?
Thank you, Farajii. We have a website, edtrust.org/mental health, and you'll find a number of resources out there, including how your states are doing in supporting social, emotional, and academic development, and what you might be able to call for with your policy makers and your school leaders to ask them to do better by children and their mental health. It's only through the community's involvement that we will see more supports going to the students who need it the most, and they need it now.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, folks, there it is. EdTrust is the website, ensuring whole child well-being through social, emotional, and academic development. Absolutely, definitely, we need to support this. Denise, thank you so much for your time today. We truly, truly appreciate you and the work that Education Trust is doing. And if you want to bring us up to speed on any other developments or updates around this issue, trust and believe that the culture is here for you to have those conversations.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Sinead, I just want to hold on to you just to get your take on this next conversation before I let you go, brother, because I got to get your take on what the latest is around this reparations talk. So if you could stick around, that would be greatly appreciated. Folks, stay tuned. We're going to continue the conversation as we have been all throughout this week, kind of bring you up to speed on the state of the reparations movement in the state of California, as California Governor Gavin Newsom has announced that he's focused more on systemic changes and not in agreement with cash payments for those eligible for reparations in the state of California. What's your take? Also, I'm going to share with you what a Black GOP official has said about what reparations really should mean to Black folks. We're going to have that conversation up next. So stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you again for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Fantastic discussion that we just had with Ms. Denise Ford, who serves as the president and CEO of Education Trust. Folks, make sure you check out the first hour if you didn't get a chance, or if you're just joining us by now. Also, join us in the chat room on our YouTube page, which we're streaming live right now. Joining our culture crew there, who is giving all of their insights and thoughts around these discussions. And this one is certainly one that I expect to hear a lot of people speak on. So join us in the chat right now as we're streaming on YouTube, Black Star Network, and of course, Amazon News. I want to bring my brother back in because he's going to give us a few extra minutes here. My brother, Sinedu Okorafor, who's a diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist. He's been working in the space of Black liberation for years, and from the time he was a young man to college. So I'm always happy to have him on there. But I had to get your take on this, bro. I had to get your take, Sinedu, because as you know, the state of California is one of the more progressive states around institutionalizing getting reparations for its residents. Here on the show, we have been keeping up on this story of how this process is looking like. There's a California Reparations Task Force. Folks, if you did not know, there's also a Boston Reparations Task Force that has been created. But California is leading the way, Sinedu, in creating a model on how reparations should be, the issue of reparations should be dealt with. One of the big things that came from the task force that met over this past weekend is that Black folks who are eligible, they're talking about 70 years old, who are lifelong residents, Black folks who are eligible should be given $1.2 million for reparations, along with other things that are dealing with changing some of the systems, the systemic changes. Well, right now, that task force has put together some set of recommendations. They have one more meeting before they're scheduled to present their recommendations to the California State Legislature at the beginning of July. But California Governor Gavin Newsom has already hinted that he's not necessarily going to be in agreement around this idea of giving cash payments to those who would be qualified for reparations. Let me share with you what he had to say as he released a statement yesterday, folks. Take a look at this. He said the Reparations Task Force independent findings and recommendations are a milestone in our bipartisan effort to advance justice and promote healing. This has been an important process, and we should continue to work as a nation to reconcile our original sin of slavery and understand how that history has shaped our country. Dealing with that legacy is about much more than cash payments. Many of the recommendations put forward by the task force are critical action items we've already been hard at work addressing: breaking down barriers to vote, bolstering resources to address hate, enacting sweeping law enforcement and justice reforms to build trust and safety, strengthening economic mobility, all while investing billions to root out disparities and improve equity in housing, education, healthcare, and well beyond. This work must continue. Following the task force submission of its final report this summer, I look forward to a continued partnership with the legislature to advance systemic changes that ensure an inclusive and equitable future for all Californians. He's not a big fan of cash, Brother Sinedu. Based upon the feedback that I got when I posted this on my social, has been, what? We want the cash. We want the money. You have to have money in this conversation. How important is the money? Is that a must-have, Sinedu, or can we be acceptable of the systemic changes?
Both are needed and none should be disregarded. I'm just going to use a term that we all hear when people sue for injury. You hear this thing called pain and suffering, right? And that is the physical discomfort and emotional distress that are compensable as non-economic damages. So when you hear that definition, right, explain to me how a country, a society that invoked damage that has lived on as long as this country has existed, how can you then tell me how you can make amends and I should receive amends? That's not how it works. You know, they say the golden rule is treat people the way you want to be treated, but the platinum rule is treat people the way they want to be treated. It confuses me that the person who is trying to make amends and reconciliate is now trying to set the parameters, of how the aggrieved should receive that reconciliation.
Right.
In itself is the exact, and I love Gavin Newsom, but that mindset is actually the exact same white supremacy that we're trying to fight. And let's be clear, just because he is on the side of, you know, the idea of reparations, it doesn't mean that there's no a white supremacy ideology that are deep seated within the hippocampus of that man, because you can't tell me how I'm going to heal from what you've done. And if you feel as if that is not going to be helpful, then maybe y'all should think twice before you all do certain things that this country has done. Give us our money, give us the laws, because it's not just money. Actually, money is the minimal piece of it, because we also need the legislation, we also need the land, we need the education, we need all different type of things. We need the idea, the autonomy of governing ourselves. So Gavin Newsom, in the words of Kendrick Lamar, miss me with that bullshit.
Maybe, and I'm wondering, and I want to hear from my crew, I'm wondering, Sinedu, that maybe people just feel like, maybe he feels like, look, the big thing is systemic change. The big thing is changing up how our policies on all of these things. But to me, bro, you know, if we get the money, if Californians get the money, and again, folks, this is a big if. This is a big if. If the Californians get the money, then you got to start to create, and then you start to create all of these other task force around the state. Like, I know Maryland would create a task force. I know that without a shadow of doubt, right? But now you got to look at the cost that it would cause the states and coming out of their budgets. You know what I'm saying? And when you start doing that breakdown, you're talking about millions upon millions of dollars coming out of these state treasuries to show their support. Now, the thing that I'm concerned about is, I don't mind the cash, but will the cash wind up getting back into the hands of those who have benefited from our oppression?
Yes. Look, there's no fully equal way to do this. Yes, that will happen, right? And I'm gonna give you a very basic example. If I give up someone who's living with homelessness $10 because they want to get food, and they end up getting drugs or something of that, first of all, I can't say I want to give you something because I want to make sure you're getting it for the right thing. Let's question my intention. You asked me for the money, I gave it to you. What you do with that is your business. That is step one. Now, step two is, and that's where the policies come in, we have to make sure that we have policies and procedures so that folks can be able to properly use this money. But if some of this money ends up going to, wrongdoing, that is just the loss. That loss exists every time we give money. When we give money in wars, when we give money for repairs, there is always a number. What do they say in economics? It's called shrink. There's always a number that is associated with a loss. So there will be that loss. But the overarching thing is that should not be a driver to should we get it or not.
That's a great point. Marcus, my guy, my brother Marcus Jackson checked in and said, give me the money and the systemic changes, period. We want it all. Just like slavery gave them all during that time. Come on, that's facts. That's facts, Marcus. Lana, my sister, you've been going in today. You said he better cut the check. Hashtag Gavin Newsom. Y'all, my grandfather bought land with his Civil War pension and amassed 150 acres, all stolen by white mobs in the Red Summer of 1919. That's what I'm talking about. See, Granddad for Lana was on point. Mm-hmm. He understood the assignment. Mm-hmm. You take that money and you put it back into it. Because look, again, I'm not upset about systemic change. And I said this before, folks. Where's the land? Where's the land? Okay, let's talk about you. I know some people be like, well, all the states can't give up land. Okay, where's the free college tuition to some of your top schools? If you want to change the trajectory and the course of a people's destiny, open up the doors. Because I mean, yeah, we could change the laws and get in housing. That's all good, but we're not advancing. I'm talking about getting us a boost, an advancement. And honestly, Sinead, you work in this space, you understand the dynamics of how these things play out in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is like, if you change the laws to say we're not going to be for housing, for example, that black people who own homes, who have their homes assessed at a lower value than white folks, we're going to change that. Does that put us further along versus land, getting college tuition will be paid for descendants of slaves for the next 20 years? I mean, does that, because I feel like there are varying levels of advancement here.
Yeah, and I think, again, there's also another famous word: don't do the crime if you can't do the time. The solution, it is an astronomical solution, because slavery was an incredulous astronomical offense. So one will match the other. Yes, we're going to need all of those things that you mentioned. But more importantly, I have to say this: the metric of measurement of how efficacious this is will not come today, tomorrow, even if the check was written. It will take, the same way it took generations for us to figure out what this did to us mentally, it will take generations for this effect to fully have a full, complete feeling to it. And again, like I said, there will be some benefits and there's no perfect way to do this, but it is better doing this than doing nothing. When we the United States leveled Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we sent what? Money and support, right? We sent both. And it was now up to the Japanese people to decide how they're going to use that money and support to build their nation. And you see what they were able to do. So give us our money, give us our support, and let's see what we'll do with it.
There it is, Sinead. I know I got to let you go, but I truly, truly appreciate the extra time you spent with us today, brother. I had to get your take. I had to get your take, man.
And I had to tell you.
Thank you. I appreciate you, brother. Folks,
appreciate you, man.
Yes, sir. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, more conversation about this. Plus, I'm going to share with you what one Black GOP member had to say about this idea of reparations. All I can say is just wait. Stay with me, folks. Stay with me. Ride with me here. You tune into the culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punching.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Farajii Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
All right, crew, welcome back to the show. We have been talking about reparations and what the California governor has said in a statement that he issued yesterday relating to the recommendations by the California Reparations Task Force, where the California governor, Gavin Newsom, made the point that he's going to be focused more on systemic changes and that cash, talking about cash, more cash, dealing with that legacy is about much more than cash payments. This is what Governor Gavin Newsom said. He said that he is going to put forward, he said many of the recommendations put forward by the task force are critical action items we've already been hard at work addressing. This work must continue. See, Mr. Governor. And y'all tell me if I'm wrong on this, crew. Mr. Governor, we do not gain from things you are already working on because it's not bold enough. See, reparations is supposed to be a bold, decisive, game-changing move that will bolster the condition, help to change the condition of Black people in the state of California. And as we have this conversation in California, we got to have this conversation all across the country that is supposed to push us, getting us into a better space. How do we have a conversation about reparations and then we don't talk about money, we don't talk about land, we don't talk about having better access to higher education or more qualitative education, we don't talk about all this stuff, we get quote unquote reparations only to be in the same position. You know what I'm saying? Only to be in the same rat race, did not get any type of forward motion. And this is my concern around what the governor is saying is that, Mr. Governor, I hope you're not misunderstanding that reparation is just supposed to repair the damage, not to maintain the suffering. Y'all hear me on that one? Repair the damage, not maintain the suffering. And that's my concern around this stance that the governor has. Now, is he completely, he said he's going to work with the California legislature. So that means that he's going to try to work with the lawmakers. But I think from a political standpoint, and I know I got a lot of politicos in the crew, but to my politicos, yeah, he kind of tainted the water a little bit. He added a little something in the water, just threw it out there very quickly, just to give them, the legislature, I think, a little heads up, like, look, this is what I'm thinking. This is the direction that I'm thinking. And so essentially, that means that we would have to advocate for something to get him off of this mindset, folks. That's the part. Echo Bean, you said political talk from Gavin Newsom. See, that's the whole conversation, right? It's going to be political talk throughout the whole time. This is political. And see, if you haven't gone to the Reparations website, folks, if you haven't gone to it, I'm going to pull this up, and I want us to take a look at the people that are on this task force, because I took a look. I looked at it up yesterday. But you got to go on to the Reparations task force, and the email address, the website address is oag.ca.gov. And Keenan, if we could put that website address up, bro, that would be greatly appreciated. oag.ca.gov. This is OAG, stands for Office of the Attorney General, CA, California government. And you can see the names and the faces of the individuals who are part of this task force. They got Senator Stephen Bradford, Dr. Amos C. Brown, who serves as the vice chair, Dr. Cheryl Grills, Lisa Holder, Assembly Member Reginald Jones Sawyer, Dr. Jovan Scott Lewis, Council Member Monica Montgomery Stepp, Mr. Donald Tamaki, and then the chair is Miss Camilla Moore. So we're talking about a situation here, folks, and I want y'all to see the faces, and on this same webpage, they also break down what the bill that helped to establish the task force, what the purpose of the bill is, California Assembly Bill 3121, and it shares with you what the overall mission is of the task force. But I don't think we need to have, thank you, bro. I don't think we need to have a bunch of political talk in the sense of how serious and important this is. This is a game-changing situation. This is game-changing, folks. So many of us can benefit from the fact that this is happening. This is game-changing here. Let me go back to you, crew. Hear what y'all can say. Monkey Confessions. Monkey, you checked in and said, I can prove my lineage all the way back to the 1700s. Reparations starts with chattel slavery. This is not for all black people, people who came by choice. Okay. All right. And I know, look, let me just say this, because I've been approached, and people have reached out, and I know that there are these various thoughts around how reparations should be done, right? Here's the thing, folks. You got a whole bunch of groups out there that have been working on this thing for 20 years. Some of them just popped up over the past 5 years. Some have been around for 15, 20 years. Some have been around for 30 years, right? But the point is, how do we want to continue the infighting, or do we want to get this thing done? That's my thing about reparations, and I know some of y'all are in those spaces as well. Do we want to get this moving? Because this is such a major step. Now, this is only on a state level. We haven't talked about the other states. We certainly haven't talked about, what this would mean for the federal government to adopt a reparations task force. So I want people to keep this in mind, that this is not a sprint. This is a marathon, and more importantly, this is a work in progress, which means that we're going to have to figure out the best way to administer justice for the damage that was done to all of us, to the generations of us. Is $1.2 million, is that the end all be all, even with all the systemic changes? No. Can you repair the damage that was done by the transatlantic slave trade with just $1 million? When the cost of bread, cost of milk, cost of gas, cost of all of these things have gone up, and you got to consider taxes. I mean, you see what I'm saying? But we're still in a serious condition in this country, and I'm speaking of black folks. So even that is not enough. But I've always been of this mindset, and we're going to take a quick pause. I've always been of this mindset. What's more important, whether we get the ball rolling, or is it more important to see who holds the ball? And we arguing about who gets the ball first and all of this stuff before the game started. Look, I get it. But somewhere along the line, the infighting is going to have to come to, have to cease. We're going to have to come to the table and figure this thing out. Because if California moves forward, if they decide, if the California legislature said, yes, we're going to take some recommendations from this reparations task force, we will do A, B, C, D, E, F. We're going to do this, we'll do that. We're not going to do this and do that. And then Gavin Newsom says, okay, that's approved. And then what? We got to go to another state. But there has to be some unity with us first on how we want to see this thing laid out. Folks, I got to take another quick pause. When we come back, I'm going to share with you what one GOP, black GOP official had to say about reparations and get your take on his recent statements about the issue. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We have been talking about the reparations issue, kind of bringing you up to speed on the latest developments with the California Reparations Task Force. As California Governor Gavin Newsom said that he's more concerned and would be more focused on systemic changes rather than cash payments. Now, I shared with in the last segment what he had to say, and I'm going to be very clear that the governor, Mr. Governor, you need to push it more. That's not bold enough. Reparation is supposed to be a bold decision. It cannot be a tepid decision. And you can't say, Mr. Governor, well, you can say it, but let me just say this. It's one thing to say we're going to make some changes, but it's insulting to people who have been affected that are looking for change. It's insulting for you to say, well, we're already doing these things that you want. Take a look at what we're doing here. Take a look at what we're doing there. Because obviously, sir, it's not enough. We're still suffering. It's not enough. It's too slow. It's not bold enough. It's not big enough. It's not justified. It doesn't bring us closer to being repaired. Yes, you may be able to focus on housing. Yes, you may be able to focus on, getting equal access to education. Yes, you can focus on health care. But these are small things, and they sound like consolatory prizes. Consolation prizes, Consolation prizes. It's like, oh, we're already doing this thing. So that means that you want us to accept something that you're already doing without taking you out of your comfort zone or the state out of its comfort zone. But what about the uncomfortable position that Black people in this country have been living in for hundreds of years? So we are having a conversation about reparations, repairing the damage, as my brother Sinead, you say, you want to dictate how you want to repair the damage instead of us telling you what we think is best? Come on, Mr. Governor. No, sir. No, sir. That's not fair, nor is that right. I'm going to say that again. It's not fair, nor is it right. No one should be able to, if someone violates you, and then they're going to tell you how they're going to make it up to you instead of you telling them. No, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that today. We're not doing it today. All right, let me get to this other piece. Well, let me just share with you, because so many of y'all have checked in about this. Marcus, you checked back in, brother. Marcus Jackson, you said, is there a reparations plan out there by Black people that addresses how to build the infrastructure necessary to capitalize off of nationwide reparations? No, I don't think there is, brother. I don't think there is a national reparations plan. I know that there have been a number of organizations, grassroots Pan-Africanist organizations that have proposed things, but that's why I'm speaking more of the markets, and I think you can understand this, bro. That's why I said that we got to stop the infighting, because the infighting among us as Black folks who have been working in these spaces for the past 30 years, past 40 years, who have been working, there's so much beef. You got folks who've been doing this for 30 years, and then you got new folks that came into the conversation, and it's creating a rift. And then guess what's going to happen? We're not going to be able to get the type of progress. So some people say, oh, the reparations task force, that's a BS task force. That doesn't work. But that's a task force but isn't that the best way for us to start moving, get the ball rolling in this governmental structure that we're currently under right now? You can't talk about reparations without creating some sort of space in government for these discussions to happen. So you have to create a task force. It has to be approved by the state. It has to be approved by the governor. I mean, that's part of the governmental side of doing things. We talk about policy. So it blows me away when I hear people say, well, the task force is nothing. Well, how do you get the conversation started with a government that has rules and regulations and all of these other stipulations? How do you get that conversation started? You can't just create a reparations group and it's not backed by anything. It's not supported by anything. It's not heard by anyone. What other way? So to your point, Brother Marcus, is there a national reparations plan that addresses how to build the infrastructure? I haven't come across it yet. And I'm not throwing shade on any group. I'm just saying, where there's so much infighting in the movement with our people that we may not have one. I remember going to the Million Man March. I remember the Women's March that was done with Black women. I remember the Millions More movement. I remember the Justice or Else March. Like all of these marches. The conversation about reparation has been brought up in every single march, every single major gathering and demonstration of Black and brown people in this country, of every single gathering and demonstration of Black folks, oppressed folks in this country. So please let me know. Let me know. All right, let me just share with you very quickly, folks. I got to bring this into the conversation. I've been holding this all week. And I was like, I got to bring this up today. So as much as we see what's going on with the California governor, there is a GOP official by the name of Mr. Mark Robinson, who is a Black man who is actually a Republican running for the governor's seat in North Carolina. So folks in North Carolina, you've heard of this brother, Mark Robinson. who thinks that black people should be paying reparations. He's North Carolina's lieutenant governor, 54 years old. He's said some wild things before, but Keenan, let me know if we got the video of Mr. Robinson ready and queued up. Because Mr. Robinson has gone on record to say that black people owe reparations. I'm going to just keep it right there. I'm going to let him explain it yourself. I want your take, crew. Take a look.
Country. They wanted reparations. And I remember I made this particular liberal so angry at me because I told them right to their face, nobody owes you anything for slavery. If you want to tell the truth about it, it is you who owes. It's you who owes. Why do you owe? Because somebody in those fields took stripes for you. Somebody after those fields were ended and slavery was ended, somebody had to walk through Jim Crow for you. Somebody fought wars and died for you. Somebody lived less than because they didn't have what you have, and they did it for you. There are people in their graves right now, and they are there because they were willing to stand up and fight for you. Those folks on the Edmund Pettus Bridge carrying American flags, take that, Colin Kaepernick, living in a society that he could scarcely acknowledge, something that he has never known, living with a bigotry that none of us can imagine. Carried American flags on that bridge, and when they were hit upside the head with nightsticks and shot with water hoses and knocked to the ground, they got up and picked those flags up and kept marching. And they did it for you. Nobody owes you anything. If anybody owes, it's you. Because you've been the benefactor of freedom. You are the one that owes.
Nobody owes us anything. Now, part of this, and this is why it's important for us to have these conversations, especially here on the culture, folks. I understand what Mr. Robinson is saying in terms of our relationship to our ancestors, right? The ancestors don't owe us. We owe it to the ancestors to continue the struggle for liberation, to continue to make the sacrifices as they have made sacrifices for us. And I'm speaking of for today's Black America. The ancestors have laid the groundwork. They have given their lives. They have given their blood, sweat, and tears for us to be in the position that we're in today. Our family members, y'all can probably go through your family tree. And you can probably tell your grandmother, grandfather, great-grandmother, great-grandfather. When you look back through that history, you know that they have given to us. They don't owe us anything. We owe to them, meaning that we need to go back and do our due diligence to make sure that the things that they fought for, the life that they wanted us to have, the vision that they have for us as a people is still consistent with where we currently are. I agree. But to say that no one owes Black people anything because of what? This is the type of thinking that will keep us in a place where we do not understand the law of justice. This is the type of thinking. We are so quick to let America off the hook. We are so quick to talk about all the other stuff, but when we talk about that original sin and the stain that sin has placed on the thinking, the minds, the heart, the very essence of Black people in this country, we don't want to get into the process of getting cleansed from that stain and from that sin. No. We want to look all around other people. We want band-aids. We want a little paper towel here. No, we need to get cleansed. This country needs to be cleansed with this from the original sin of its breakdown of a whole people from hundreds of years ago to this very moment today. Look, I got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, share your thoughts. Let's continue the conversation. Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson of North Carolina, 54 years old. He's running for governor in the state of North Carolina, Republican, saying that no one owes Black people anything. What's your take? Stay with me, folks. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. I want to get some insight from you as the culture crew about this situation of reparations. We still got the situation. You can certainly post your thoughts on what the California governor said about his focus, not believing that the legacy of slavery is not about cash payments, but about he's focused on more systemic changes. And then you got Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson of North Carolina, Republican, who's running for governor of the state of North Carolina, saying that Black folks aren't owed reparation. Black people should be paying reparations to those who have built this country and made a way for us. How do you come out your mouth with that madness, man? That circular logic to confuse people. And just because you sound strong and you got a podium in front of you, you're talking a bunch of BS. You're talking a bunch of BS, Mr. Lieutenant Governor. How do you do that? This circular logic. Let me who said this? This is what we're seeing in this country, folks, and this is why here on this show, I hope by the grace of the Almighty God that we compel you to think critically about what's being said, what's being told, how people are presenting information, because you got to learn how to not be wrapped up in someone's circular logic of things. It's like when we played that deposition video of President Trump yesterday, and he talked about that statement of grabbing women by the crotch. And he said, oh, all the stars do it. And then he tries to throw in some wild ass statistic, do you believe that when the woman asks them a very explicit question, do you believe that women should be grabbed by their crotch? You know, do you think that this is right? Well, it's been done for millions of years. You know, they like it. I mean, fortunately, yet unfortunately, I mean, this crazy ass logic that people have put out around these issues, big issues, human rights issues, civil rights issues. And we want to get wrapped up in confusing rhetoric of people who don't give a damn. Who don't give a damn. So I'm not with that. And I don't want you to be either, because this issue of reparations is way too important. You're talking about taking a generational step. We do need to think through this. We need to make sure that we're on the same page with this. Because if you're talking about what is owed to the ancestors, you know what is owed to the ancestors? For us to think critically about our condition, for us to really think about the future. Because there's not going to be another reparations conversation again. Whether it's in California, whether it's in Massachusetts, whether it's in Illinois, or whether it's in New York, there's not going to, because America's going to say, fine, we're going to have this conversation, but don't bring this up again. So we have to be very, very sober-minded, clear-thinking people that can not just think about the present, but we got to think about the future. Since this whole thing is about repairing the damage, that means that while we have this short window right now, right? It's like any great advancement in any social justice cause of the movement for the struggle of liberation, right? Like everything that we've gotten in this country, every advancement in our rights and privileges in our life, we had to do it in a very short window of time when there was a perfect storm of circumstances where the attitudes of people was in our favor, have been in our favor. We got to do this right, folks, because we owe this just not to the ancestors, but we owe this to our children and to our children's children. Don't play around with something. You thinking small, you thinking present, when we got to think about future generations. That's how serious the situation is. All right. Let me hear what y'all got to say. Davey, you checked in and say, first of all, Black America's owed a debt that can't possibly be repaid, on which reparation isn't about making us whole. It's about acknowledging history period and taking the first step towards history, towards healing. Davey, I'm with you. It's not the end all be all. It's not the end all be all, but it really is about taking the steps. And see, this is the moral component of this, Davey, and I'm sure you probably thought about this, and I'm sure everybody else y'all thought about this as well. The moral component is that if America truly wants to be saved, she better have a plan on to repair its relationship with its with its former slaves, for her benefit. Yes, it benefits us to have this conversation, to have this pieces of legislation, to talk about cash, to talk about money, to talk about college tuition. But this is really, if the country, look, this country can't move forward. And it's becoming harder and harder for the country to move forward until the country deals with its relationship, its past, its present, and the future relationship of Black people in this country. You can't talk about progress. You can't talk about making no gains. This country gonna have to deal with this. America, you're gonna have to deal with Black people. Or you're gonna continue to see the suffering. You're gonna continue to see the things that we're seeing that is destroying this country. America is going to have to deal with this, y'all. And since America is going to have to deal with this from a high justice standard, That means those of us who are present in this day and time must be in the right mind, the right heart, have the right spirit, because we are leading the way. We are the trailblazers for those coming behind us. All right, let's go. Let me go back to what y'all saying, and so many people are checking in. Carolyn Carey, you said, Farajii, why don't we go down the list of each other racial demographic in the U.S. and see if the government gave them some form of reparations? Then let's ask that politician if they owe black too. Absolutely. That's something. We could do our research and do that. Yeah, absolutely. Marcus, you said that's 100% Farajii. Thank you so much, Marcus. Appreciate you. Let me go to here. Shalinda said, oh, this is something very unique. View said, very unique said, this is what speaking in circles sounds like. We may owe the ancestors, but they still owe us. So we should fight more to get what our ancestors did not. Come on. Come on. That's where we at right now. What would the ancestors want? What would the ancestors do? We always ask the question, what would Jesus do? He's one of the ancestors. What would he and the rest of the ancestors want? What would he and the rest of the ancestors do in a situation like this? They wouldn't see it as no game. They'll cut through all the chatter. And I truly believe, folks, as we close out, I truly believe that if we keep in mind justice, truth, establishing a future for establishing a new world, a new relationship for future generations, I truly believe we'll be in the right space. But if we caught up in the rhetoric, in the talk of progress, and not really seeing bold, decisive moves made for progress, if we're caught up in the rhetoric and talk of who we really owe, look at our condition. Black America has been broken. We're trying, and even with all of the policies, even with a little money, we might get a repair. But this is about making people see our humanity. This is about making people see that America needs to owe. America owes us. We owe it to the ancestors, but America owes us. I gotta stop right here, yo. I appreciate you. I thank you. I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in, having a conversation. Of course, we're going to keep you posted on the forward movement of this discussion, but I thank you for joining us. I want to thank our very special guests. We want to thank Denise Ford from Education Trust. We want to thank my brother Sinead Wakofor. I want to thank my team, Joel and King Keenan, my control room, but I cannot thank you enough, crew, for being a part of the conversation. Do your due diligence. Tell your friends and family about us. BlackStarNetwork.com. Go to our website today, download the app for free, share the content, and follow us on all social media platforms at BlackStarNetwork.com. Also, to make sure that you follow me, yours truly, Farajii Muhammad. You can follow me on Twitter at Farajii, on Instagram at The Real Farajii, and I love to connect with you. All right, stay tuned. Up next is RMU, Roland Martin Unfiltered. Stay tuned for that conversation. A bunch of great discussions going to be happening tonight. So stay tuned for that at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we will talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Thank you for tuning in.